Okay, I'm going to give you a little couple of tips here about car maintenance and detection on cars. We purchased off of Buy Sell Trade I think it's HO Buy Sell Trade on Facebook. Kind of follow it and keep up with it. I was looking for some Pulpwood cars. This happens to be a Burlington Northern. Oops. Well, we'll go to another one. We have a couple of SPs, 3 SPs in the other room. I'll take you out there and show you. There's 2 L&N cars and a Burlington Northern. So when we got these cars, we bought them. They were used. Got a good deal on the price. Actually, the individual had a bunch of cars listed, and they were all of the Athearn blue box cars in this era. I asked him if he had any of these, and he came back and said, yeah, he had 6 of them. So I bought all 6. 5 of them came with the loads. My recollection on this, because this goes back a ways, Athearn didn't sell these cars with the loads. You had to buy, the loads were made by somebody else, these particular loads, and they split up too. And just so you know how this works, I'll just turn this car over, and it sits in like this. I'm sure everybody's seen some, but that's the load. Very, very prototypical type looking load. In my neck of the woods, they had thousands of these cars running around. In the Pine area, southeast of the United States, this was very common to see pulpwood cars. Now, they didn't all look like that particular car. And believe me, there were shapes, varieties. Some cars were thrown together. They were just made up. But anyway, so all the cars basically were in good shape. They all had plastic wheels on them. Okay, that doesn't work on DCC. We all know that. So I had a box of, let's see if it's got a label on it. Yes, there it is. Intermountain HO 33 gauge wheels. I buy them in a bulk pack. There's 10 in each one of those little packs. They come 100 to a box. Okay, that's how I buy them. All right. Now, we went through. We got the cleanout tool. Got to have one of these, people. This little tool right here. Okay. You get them from Micro Mark, and that one end right there is a cutting edge. Okay. You have to put it in between those 2 wheels, not where the wheel is. Instead of the wheel, you put that in between. You hold, you grab the wheels like this, squeeze against that device, and then the little rubber piece on allows you to rotate it with your other hand and clean out the journal ends. This is a must on any car with plastic side frames, trucks. You got to clean out those journal ends. And it's time consuming and a pain, because there's a lot of little trucks here that had to be cleaned out. This is kind of a 6 cars is 24 axles, and double that, 48 journal ends you got to clean out. It's one of those little tasks in a hobby that gets to be a little bit, rigorous. So anyway, we cleaned out both journal ends. We put one axle, one metal wheel, set of wheels in. Then we took the other wheel and we take an X-Acto knife and we scrape on each the wheel side and the axle side, because there is a film. These have some type of little film sprayed on them. We take an X-Acto knife, scrape it till you'll see it come off, but we scratch it That is a 5,000 ohm resistor. Couple little dab spots of super glue, and we set it in there where it's touching the axle and touching the wheel. As you can see right behind it, there's a rubber insulator. If you take your ohm meter and touch the wheel and touch the axle without that resistor in there, you're going to get a 0 resistance reading. With the ohm meter, with the resistor in there, you should read somewhere right around 5,000 ohms. So we do 2 axles per car, 1 on each end. That way, if it's hanging into a control point block on the back end of the car, it will trigger the block is occupied. And if you're running a CTC system on your railroad, which I understand there isn't a whole lot of you out there that do this, but if you are, you got to trigger that control point block, that it's occupied. Because usually that's a switch, and you can't be throwing switches if the train hasn't cleared. Okay, so anyway, that's what the resistor's for. It tells the thing, tells your control panel the block's occupied. And I'll show you that on the screen. I've showed this before. So we sat here and we made up all our little wheel sets with resistors that are going on those trucks right there. We repaired a couple of couplers. The cars did come with KD couplers on them. There was one missing. Not uncommon when you buy used equipment. You know, got to have the little parts and pieces to tune up your cars. They were 5s with a brass plate. I think I had to replace one brass plate. One I had to go because they tried to glue on the little cover plate right there, that little piece of metal on an Athearn car. They put some glue in there. So in that car, because the brass plate wouldn't go back on real easy, I went with a 48 or 14 coupler. That's the Whiskers 5. So I don't have to have a brass plate. So, yeah, this is, tune the car up. Okay, so we brushed them off. We tuned it up. Now, I'm not going to show you this, but I can tell you. Let me turn it over. Hey, see, you have upside down numbers. The problem I have is that number 23506. I think these are all 23506. I'm not sure. No, there's a 23507. And this is a 23507. Two of them have the same numbers. I'm going to bet you I already have those numbers in the system. So one of the next steps I'm going to have to do is I'll probably go in and renumber the cars. So, yeah, those cars which are duplicate. Now, I talk about the resistors, and I'll show you this. This is my panel, and where I'm going to take you is right there, the apex and that middle track. Well, and that CP point's occupied too down there at the end. The one next to the station's got 2 engines sitting on it, so that's why it's showing up red. But I'll take you out there and show you. But that's what happens when on my panel when a train's sitting in a block. It turns red. So we'll go out here, and I'm doing a little bit of trying not to do editing on this. That's the car sitting in the control point. Note the switches. And it's got resistors on the wheel, and that's an L and N car. And then right here is the gap for the control point. So that's a block, and this is a block. And that car is sitting in the block in front of the station. So it's got that block occupied. And those 2 engines sitting in front of the station track right there. have that block occupied. Now, you don't have to put resistors on engines, they're built in, okay? The motor does an excellent job being a resistor. All right, so yeah, that way that if you go right here to this block and you have one wheel set in the block and one out, let's go see if the front wheel set works. And we'll go take a look. I'll be damned it did. Look at that. Right there. Right where those two switch crossovers are. That front 5,000 ohm resistor on that truck. Because I put one on each truck. Triggered that control point. And that's technically, to keep this correct, if you're running a CTC system for the signals, in the JMR logic, that car is foul that switch. So you can't run a train through there. So that's why you have on both wheel sets. Now, if I push it back here, we're past the block gapping, and we'll go back and look. I'll be darned. Look. There's the switch is not occupied, so you can throw the switch. By the way, in this is layout editor. This panel was built in JMRI, not Dakota Pro. This is Panel Pro, and in Panel Pro there's another program called Layout Editor. It is suggested to use Layout Editor thing. Now, JMRI has some basic logic built into it that you could put the signals. This is an NCE system, and you now have all of the pieces necessary to create your CTC system. The only piece missing on this railroad is the signals. And the way you hook up the signals in an NCE system to JMRA is a little device called a light it. So you need to control your switches remotely, which you can do. There's decoders to control your switches. You have to have block detection, which you do through AIOU01s. It is involved. If you're going to try to do a CTC system on a railroad, I strongly suggest finding somebody who's done it. I did this kind of on my own when we built this back around 2000, this about the era of 2009, 2010. Thought I was getting enough blocks in, and believe me, I don't have anywhere near enough blocks. So I'd have to go back and add some block detection in, which wouldn't be difficult from the standpoint of the physical aspect of it. It just gets to the point where it gets very difficult from the standpoint of reworking the panel in the computer. And for some of y'all, it can be real easy, but I can tell you, I started playing with this stuff in 95. I'm now 75. The function part upstairs in trying to put all the connect X, Y, and Z, sometimes it's very difficult. It's not that I don't do it. It's as you get older, it just becomes more and more difficult to fool with all of those boards. There's tables. There's a sensor table. There's a switch table, and you would need a accessory table now with your lights on it. I forget what that's called because I haven't done any. So till you do it, you don't remember things. But it would, it is involved, and then getting it all to talk to each other. That part I haven't even gotten to. Believe me, I have been to some very, very nice layouts that I can tell you that it works very well. My Mid-South Model Railroad, let's see, I don't know what he got. The Rat Hole Division, Walter Rieger's Rat Hole Division, and John Parker's BNSF Railroad all work, Fall River Division work meticulously. They are very good on the whole system. But it is quite involved, and you can't be timid about it if you don't have a basic understanding of how all this stuff connects, and logic wise how it works. You could be, and without help, you could be fighting a real uphill battle. So anyway, that's the story on the cars. We have a couple operations on this railroad. We have a We Grind It over here in Apex Industrial. Grinds up pulpwood, and it puts in wood chip cars. Sorry, there isn't a wood chip car here right at the moment. Don't know where they all are. But there's an example of another bulkhead flat, and this was common too, with log cut up pulpwood logs on it. Now, that's one we made ourselves. And those are real cypress wood logs cut from branches. Long story about making those. Wow. Always got to be leery about doing things yourself. That was so much of a load on that car. It caused issues, and the car has trouble staying on the track. So guess what? It's not in the JMRI operations system. So it just sits there. We have two of them. And because it's not in the system, the trains don't pick it up. People always ask me, well, when we do a check of the railroad, well, that car's not in there. What do I do with it? I just leave it sit there. That's what it does. Now, here's some more pulpwood car operations we have. And, of course, we send the stuff off and on the railroad, and, it goes to other parts. But we operate pulpwood cars on the railroad. And I have a plan for those cars. I'll cover that in another video. But the whole thing is about cars, buying cars. Look at the used stuff. It's great. You can tune them up. You can put metal wheels on them. You can put resistors if you're into that kind of stuff. You can fix the KDs on them. If necessary, I could cut boxes. I could cut these and put KD boxes on them. One of the other things we'll do is back here, we'll check the coupler height gauge. That's what that gauge is. We will take each car and check to make sure that little trip pin is not too low, because I'm sure all of you've seen in my videos, I use KD couplers. So it stops people from touching your cars. So just a little thing about cars, tuning up used cars, making them work, and how you fix things. Now, believe me when I tell you these will roll good. And by the way, all the plastic wheels, that's where they are, in the trash can. Okay? I used to put them in bags, bring them with train shows, but nobody wanted to buy them. I'd give them away just so I didn't have to bring them home. So anyway, that's just examples of things. Tune up your cars, keep them running good, and believe me, a lot of your headaches will go away, okay? It's just good thing to do. So I hope this little video helps. Bye. Okay, missed a part here. On the resistor right there, let me turn this, get a little bit better light. You see the gray? That is a liquid wire paint. I've used a couple of types. There's black paint. Don't forget, I had a bottle of it around here. It's not jumping out right at me right at the moment, so I'll just say that one didn't work as good. This is the one that works the best. Circuit Works nickel conductivity pin. All right. Amazon, DigiKey, I think, sells us. Some other electronic supply places. You can, I'm sure, Google it and find it. But pen costs a few dollars, but it works. Once you super glue the resistor in place, you let it dry. The super glue basically forms insulation. It holds the resistor in place, but the resistor is not making contact most of the time with either the axle or the wheel itself. So if you see right there, I've scratched. Let's see if I can get a better one. You see I've scratched the wheel because there is a coating on the back of these wheels and on the axle. You see I've scratched the axle. You can see the scratches. I did that with a X-Acto blade. Then once it dries, then I go back and touch each end with the paint. And that makes the connection through the resistor. You notice how close right there that paint comes to touching. That's a little too close, but as long as they don't touch is good. All right. But again, this is the pen. You have to warm the pen up. Before I did the job today, it's a nice sunshiny day here in the 70s, so I set it out on a metal table in the sun for about 15 minutes. It warmed up. Then you shake it. You have to shake it real good, and you got to hear the ball. There's a metal ball inside there that rolls back and forth. You may have to squeeze it to loosen it up, but you need to hear that ball going back and forth. Shake it and get the liquid all mixed up, and then you push it down. You see the little point goes in. You'll feel it going in. Squeeze it, and you'll see the liquid come out. Have a piece of paper towel around so you can blot it. You get in there and you start painting it in place. Just tell you, practice makes perfect on this one. But that's the way to put the resistors on a wheel. Now, your system, and whatever system you may be using, I'll give you an example I know of. The block detectors at Mid-South Model Railroad Club, which is CMRI system, take less of resistance. I think they're using 11,000 resistors, so it takes less. I tried taking some of those resistors when I started from there, and mine was marginal. It wasn't consistent. So, the guy who was helping me, Rod, said you need to jump up the resistance. So we went to 5,000. The two little resistors look exactly the same. You just have to get a micro thing to read them. So we went up to 5,000, and that works real good for my device. My detector in an NCE system uses a BD20 and an AIOU01 for the block detector. And I'm not going to go into all that. I have another video on that, on how that works and how you set it up. But this is the first starting point. If you don't have these resistors on the wheels, the cars won't trigger the BD20, which tells the AIOU01 to tell the computer to tell the command station that block's occupied, that tells JMRI, light the light on the board. Okay, that's basically how simple it works. If I had the signals on, then JMRI would run the logic and would say, put the light on the signal, either red, flashing yellow, or green. That's the end result of that little resistor right there. That's what it does if you have the complete CTC system. You could also go with some basics. Say you don't have to go CTC, but there's other ways to go. You could go ABS and things like that. But that's a part that I didn't cover in the beginning about that pen. You need to make the connection. And be sure to scratch the back of those wheels, because inner mount wheels have some type of lacquer spray. I don't know. It works fine on a rail, but no problems there. But most people are not using these for conducting electricity. So in this case, I am. Just the one little headache you need to avoid. Scratch it with the X-Acto knife, and put the paint on it, and you won't have any problems. Okay, for our little train we're working on with the Pulpwood Cars, I had two wood chip cars purchased long time ago. A whole set when the company that made these came out with them, purchased the whole set. And I had not put them all into service because we had enough on the layout. But now with the extra space and storage, and what we're trying to do here, we're going to go ahead and take these out of the box. I'm not going to show you the box. Some of you may know who made these cars. I am not going to use the name. Very frankly, it's a case of a company who made a very bad mistake in how they wanted to market their products. And let's just say it, a lot of people didn't like what happened, and then the repercussions went back at them because nobody supports them anymore. So anyway, there it is. And just, make a comment why I'm not mentioning who made these. But what we're doing right now is we're going to put the resistors on these wheels. Now they're metal wheels, but they have plastic axles. Gotta tell you, in the world of model railroading, not the best situation, okay? But it serves the purpose for metal wheels, and as long as they're functioning correctly, we're going to leave them there. So we're going to put the little resistor right in the middle, and then we'll take our pen and we'll paint a line across things. So what I'm going to do is I got my super glue out and my thing to put it on, and I use nothing more than just a little straight pin, one of these things, to put a dot of super glue in the middle, and then we'll put the resistor on. Let it dry, and then probably tomorrow I'll come paint them on. I have 4 to do. We don't need to take the wheels out. We don't need to do anything else. These are cars because they just came out of their box. They've never been run before. Only thing I did do already, I don't know if I can get it to focus in or not. I just had it show up. I scraped it with the X-Acto knife. See, number 11 blade. Okay. So we scraped the edge there. I can see it, but I'm having a hard time the camera getting to focus on it where it is scratched. These wheels are not showing the coating that the inner mount wheels did, but it doesn't hurt to scratch it because we want to make sure that we get a good electrical contact. So we're going to stop here and we'll do a couple steps and come back and show you the results. So you see the super glue sitting on the axle. Now you see the resistor. Now I will tell you this, if you get into this thing with the resistor, it's not going to cause a problem. They have the brake wire thing here. If that resistor was a little further to the top of my picture here, as it went around, it would be hitting that piece of plastic. So Kind of got to look, because I've had cases where I've had to put the resistors off to the left or the right, to the bottom or the top, whatever the case may be, not right in the middle. See, when this turns, that could be an issue. So may I glue the brake thing over. But anyway, it's just something to else you just got to look out for when you're doing this. So that's kind of done. That axle's done. I scratched both sides with the knife. I won't push this and try to put the conductivity connection on until tomorrow. Just patience here pays off on this stuff. Let that resistor get good and dry. So this, this may be it. But I'm going to come back and go over all the cars and then what we're headed to do here. What I'm doing now is I'm putting the cars into JMRI. This is cars, excuse me. This is the list for cars. And we're putting each one of the new cars into the system. So the 291 car shows up right here. Wood chip, 62 foot long, and it's at West Junction, West Pulpwood chip track. Pulpwood Cars and chip cars. You can only get 26 letters in a description, so it's a combination of the two types of cars on that track. If I go right there, it says this is locations on the railroad. Go right there, it says West Junction Pulpwood chip spur. It's 1,000 feet long, and now it's showing 9 cars. If I go right here, I click at it, and I go to tools, and I say show cars. There's the 9 cars that are sitting on that track. And you see our car right down here, 291 and 299. I picked up another car like these and I put it in there. But that's the 9 cars, 6 Pulpwood cars, and then 3 chip cars. It includes these 2. So that's probably as far as I'm going to go with that. Now we need the next part. I'll show you the train before I close out the video. But the next part I'm going to get into is taking this whole thing, turning it into a route train and making it work as an operating train that services all these locations for the railroad during an op session. Okay, well, we're back here the next day, and I've gotten the resistor on, and now I'm going to paint the axle. And believe me when I tell you, this camera's in a really precarious mode, because as you can see, I got 2 hands involved. So I push down and you can see the paint coming out, and I want to make sure that I get some all the way in here on the side of the wheel, and then I come all the way across, touch the end of the resistor there, and then do the same thing on the other side, and it's touching there, and then come over here and make sure there's adequate liquid all the way across. Now, gonna have to let that dry before I can test it. It won't, you may think because it's wet it would test. It doesn't work until it dries out. I found that out a long time ago. Can't explain that one, but it is. I'm going to do the other 3 wheels. Then I'll try to get the train brought up, and we'll take a little video of it and the cars that we've done, and then that'll end this part of the video. The next thing we'll do is actually start figuring out how we're going to run this train around the layout. It'll be a local type of train. It'll come out of the one track and it'll return to that yard. Other trains will go pick up the cars and move them to other points on the railroad. But as far as this division's concerned, this is a local train that'll run out of the West Junction yard. So now you can see all four of the wheels that I wanted to get resistance on have been had the 5,000 ohm resistor put on it and the contact paint, nickel conductivity paint put on there. One thing I want to make a point here, just to reference, these wheels have plastic axles. I might have mentioned earlier, this is not the best situation in the world. The issue here, I have had a couple of these wheel sets because of the resistor and where they got stopped, or for one reason or another, they did build up some heat, and they eventually, the axle, it got hot enough it warped. I think I've had that happen on 2 cars, and there are a ton of this particular brand of cars on my layout. So I don't, I know now why it happened. It's the resistor and the resistance building up on it for whatever reason. When you're dealing with track segments with 14 volts and they have as much as 5 amps running across it, there are definitely possibilities of getting things warm. So it happened twice. It's kind of obvious when the car goes humping up and down the track and you see it going up and down, and you kind of take the car, spin the wheel, and it's warped. It's time for a new wheel. Okay. Happens to the big railroad too. They get cracked wheels. They have axles break. That, believe me, it's not just model railroads that had problems. So, okay, moving on. We're going to go try to, we're letting this dry right now. We're going to test it, and we're going to get the train out, and then we're going to take a video and try to put this together and post it. Bye-bye. Okay, so we finished up everything as far as this part of the video is concerned. I caught one more thing I forgot about with the chip cars. This is the train. That's one of the chip cars which I had previously and made a load up on this. There is a video on I think Grande Pacific Tips and Tricks, or just under the Grande Pacific playlist in YouTube, that shows putting that load in there. That load doesn't fill that car up, believe me. It's right at the top. There's a piece of styrene there, and the chips are just put right at the top. These were the cars, the Pulpwood cars that we bought with the loads. We have put our numbers on the top. We changed the numbers on this car because it was a duplicate of something I already had. And we changed the number on this car. That was done with chart pack with the T-Touch tape machine. 6mm tape. Now we did cut that down a little further. It's probably rated 4mm, but we cut the edges off. Now each one of the cars has a number on top. This is the old age model railroading club and thing. Now this chip car's got the number here done up top. That was the one thing I noticed just a second ago. I got to do these 2 cars. It's real simple. I have some styrene strips already cut brown and painted brown, and I'll make up the 2 stickers to go on them and put them up there. The issue on these cars, I remember now, they had Accumate couplers on them. Believe me, they don't work. So we went and put, in this case, we went and put KD14s, the whisker couplers on them, and that for a final part of the tune-up there. So then now these cars have KD14s, and there's our empty CB&Q Pulpwood car. So this will be the beginning equipment and stuff that'll come out of West Junction yard, and this will be the Pulpwood and chip car turn. Like we have the grain ethanol trains, well, we're going to have Pulpwood chip car trains. And they'll go to all the places on the railroad. Handle these cars and make stops, pickup, drop-offs. They'll go to the various yards and make pickups and drop-offs. So this should give somebody some activity to keep them busy. That part I'm going to show you in a different video. So this will probably bring us to a wrap, other than for me to get the number tags up top here. And it's done just like these with the little brown styrene strip. And this will keep this train going. Little tip here. These SD9s, you hear the sound running. These are Broadway Limited. And for a lot of you people out there in this model railroad world, if you ever run across these engines, they were called Blue Box. They did not come with the motor decoder in them. You had to buy that separate and put it in. The trick is, don't bother reading Broadway Limited's instruction. Just take that motor decoder. It takes an NCE, I think it's a 114 decoder, and they still make it. It's very narrow. It's a unique motor decoder. I know I keep a couple of spares around here because this isn't the only Broadway Limited Blue Line engines I have. But I have a frame where I can just plug in a decoder into an engine, put it on the programming track. I programmed the decoder, then I took it out and put it inside each one of these engines with the number 5302, and then another one with 5363. And that solved me trying to go through a very meticulous, crazy way to program these engines that already have a sound decoder in them. So if you see Broadway Limited Blue Line engines, get the decoder from NCE and program it somewhere else, then just go stick it in the engine. All right, so there it is. We'll be out here and we'll get this train made up in JMRI, show you that, and then we'll run it around.